All right.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining us on another episode of Master the DEX. This is episode 4. And last time we talked about navigating the DEX, navigating Spark DEX in particular, you know, all the different tabs. It's sort of like you're looking at this whole pane of glass. It's like a exchange in your wallet. I think that concept has been a little crazy for people because they're not used to having a whole exchange in your wallet. You're used to just having this really simple wallet, send, receive. This has so much more that I think it's been, you might be realizing just how much functionality is in here. And what we're going over today is trading strategies. So I'm one of the ones I'm most excited about. We're going to talk about the longing and shorting of trades. And it's interesting because rather than using sort of traditional constructs or instruments, there's sort of a way you can long and short. It's like you buy this coin if you're long, you buy that coin if you want to short, right? So we'll get into that. We're going to talk about arbitrage. We're going to talk about moving averages, reading charts, arbitrage, and just sort of we're just going over some super basic stuff. I think we definitely have the mentality of we will expand this as people tell us about things, and we kind of want to just step people up, right? Not overload them. But you guys at BitSpark, you guys are in the remittance business. You built a DEX. I think this is a really golden opportunity to tap into your knowledge about not only trading strategies, but also just sort of like the world that is crypto trading and specifically BitShares DEX trading. So so let's maybe start. Have you kick us off with sort of the longing and shorting on BitShares. Tell us about that.
Thanks for the intro, Aaron. So I'm just going to share desktop with you at the moment, and do let me know if you...
Looks good. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So currently what we're looking at is the BitUSD BTS chart right here. So in this case, it's the price of BTS in BitUSD. We saw previously last week that we had a number of other different markets down the side here, and of course, if we scroll down, we'll see the order book as well. So I think this is a good base for us to start. And one of the questions is, how can we, what are some of the strategies of which we can use on this market? Now, one of them I think is an interesting one, is the arbitrage. And arbitrage is essentially something which we engage in on a daily basis between our different markets. In different currencies, rupiah is a good one that we like to use. Tether USD, HKD, BTC. A lot of these different markets is what we're sort of engaged in on a daily basis. But essentially, the concept of arbitrage is where you buy a coin at one price and then sell it at another price for a profit. So, in the world, there are many different markets, and they're not all at the same price all the time. Often, if one market goes up, then, the other one might not go up, and therefore the price is different in that market. So it's worth paying attention to these things, because essentially, if you can buy low somewhere and then sell high somewhere else, well, you're going to make money, right? And you don't really have to speculate too long on the price in order to do that. So certainly, if you see that there is an opportunity to make money there, then that could be something to look at. So essentially, what we want to start off with is just have a look at the BitUSD market here. We have the sort of current order book here. We've got a price of 3.25 cents on the ask, and we've got a price of 3.18 cents on the bid. And we can compare this to some of the other sort of larger markets that operate. So I've currently got the Binance price up here as well. This is the Binance BTS BTC market. And you can see here that Binance actually has a dollar value for BitShares here as well. So we can see that the equivalent price on Binance is about 3.29 cents. So we can see that that's a little bit different to what we've got here on the DEX. Even if we bought this one at 3.25 and sold on Binance at 3.29, you can make money there, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. As well, you can see that we're actually not really comparing apples and oranges here. So here we're looking at the BTS BitUSD, and here we're looking at the BTS BTC market. So let's just switch over to the SparkDex BTC market, which is more accurately represented from the Binance perspective. We can see here we've got some of our trades happening, we've got an order book, and we've got the amount of Satoshis for a bid share. So essentially we've got 313 on the bid and 317 on the ask. And we can see here that, again, we've got 313 on the bid on Binance, and we've got 314 on the ask. So essentially, one opportunity here might be that you can see there's only 722 BTS available. So essentially, you want to be buying at a low price and then selling it at a higher price. So potentially, one thing to do is to buy at 314 on Binance, and then see if you can sell and place an ask at 317. And then that means that the next order that comes along will be taking your ask at 317. So, you know, if we just get up a calculator there, hold on, calc, there we go. Just a rough estimate, 313 divided by 317. Let's say we were able to do that. So there's about a 1.2% opportunity there if you're able to execute those two trades. And essentially, what we want to do is we want to, A, find opportunities like this. B, ideally, we want to be able to execute on them 24/7, because they're always going to be there when you're asleep at 3 a.m. The order book is still there, it's still trading. So, you know, that gets into, I think, what we'll talk about next episode with a lot of the automation of these strategies with DEXBot. But just for the simple arbitrage sort of opportunity there, we can see that might be something to look at there. Now, there are some other interesting markets as well. So if we say we can switch to, well, let's check the USD market and let's check BTC USD. So this is a new market that recently got up and trading. We can see here that there's a bid at 10,136 and an ask at 10,339. Now, if we go and sort of compare that with, say, the Binance price, and if we, I think we go USD, BTC, something like that. This one, the USDT price is the most liquid one. So we can see here that the actual price on Binance is 10,485, right? So hold on a moment. You can buy here at 10,339, and then you can sell here at 10,490. So straight off the bat, I mean, let's do that one, right? So was it 10,339 divided by 10,487? Approximately, 1.5% there as well. So, opportunities are everywhere, right? So you've just got to be able to be able to spot them and be able to exploit them. And essentially, if you're buying that order, you can see it's not a very big order at all. But even if you bought this order, which is a little bit more, you would still be below this price. So you'd still be able to make money there. Now, something interesting to note is that often the prices on the sort of larger centralized exchanges, they're the ones that will move first. So they're the most active. And often people go, well, why would I trade on a smaller exchange that is perhaps less active than, say, a larger exchange? And I mean, the thing is that the opportunities are really for the small ones, because that's where the price is not moving second by second, right? So if there is a big 10% pump or something like there was yesterday in the Bitcoin price, or the day before, we went from something like 9,500 up to 10,500. That happens on the larger exchanges first, and it takes time for the smaller ones to react. And that's where the opportunities are, because if the price on the smaller ones is still at, say, 9,500, and the bigger ones are at 10,500, well, I mean, that's a really good opportunity there. So, one other, good trade that we like to look at is the Indonesian Bitcoin Indo-DAX, that price, and compare that to the local markets. Often the Indonesian market is trading higher than the rest of the world, and they also offer a BitShares market as well. It's not working for me at the moment, but anyway, we'll just focus on these two. But often some of the prices on some sort of regional exchanges are higher than the rest of the world, and that's often because there's more demand in some countries, like Indonesia, like here in Hong Kong. Korea is famous for that as well. Korea back in 2017, there was a 30% premium compared with the rest of the world. So you could buy in like the US at one price, and then you could send the Bitcoin to Korea and you could sell it at another price.
Wow.
And essentially the good thing about the DEX is because of all of these different stable coins, there's actually the opportunity here to be able to access a lot of these local currencies and their different prices that they might trade at around the world. So another interesting one we can look at actually is we'll go back up here. We'll open our trading view and we'll look at the BTC to HKD market, SparkDex HKD. So in the case of HKD, now Hong Kong dollar is actually pegged to the US dollar. So Hong Kong dollar is pegged at 7.85. So when you see a Hong Kong dollar, it's literally the same as seeing a US dollar, right? So essentially, you can trade these markets relative to the US dollar price. So if we just convert this into HKD at the moment, we can see here the order book. You've got bids at 79,000. You've got an ask at 80,263, and we can currently see what that bid is at. Let's say in USD terms, just by dividing it by the peg, so 7.85. So 80,263 divided by 7.85. We're at a price there of 10,224. Right now, remember on Binance the price is at 10,489. Right, so if you buy on this Hong Kong dollar market, you're actually getting a $200 US discount, right? So, and that's super cool because often if you're not, maybe Hong Kong dollar is not your local currency, right? Let's say you're a trader in the US, you don't know what a Hong Kong dollar is, but really you shouldn't care because if you want to make money on these markets here, a Hong Kong dollar is the same as a US dollar. The same is true for an AED. The same is true for, a lot of currencies around the world that are pegged to the USD in some way. If you're trading them, you're trading a US dollar. So some of the opportunities in these markets would be to look for, some of the opportunities here and then maybe go and sell it for USD. So, you could buy this at the equivalent of, what was it here, 10,224, and you can sell it at 10,490 on Binance, you pocket a $200 profit. And you can see the market depth here is pretty good. We've got, 275K HKD on the bid. You've got 1.44 Bitcoin on the ask. So, in the range, I think on the bid here, what's that, about 25K US, something like that. So, sufficient market depth in order to make some decent money. So it's being aware of these things on the DEX, which is pretty important. Essentially, what do we mean when we short something or when we go long something? Essentially, if we're buying something hoping that the price goes up, with doing what's called a long. And if we're selling something hoping that the price goes down, we're shorting it. So in the case of what happens with, say, BitUSD, BitUSD, I think as we discussed last time, is called a smart coin. And a smart coin means that in the BitShares world, it's crypto collateralized. So in order to make a BitUSD, you need to have some BitShares in the beginning, right? That's how it comes into existence. There's nobody issuing it other than people who just want to lock up some BitShares to issue it. Now, this is the same process for DAI on MakerDAO. In fact, MakerDAO is a fork of the original BitShares protocol, and they just put it on Ethereum. So,
fun fact, I love learning stuff like that because you never know like what was what, and it's like, wow, like who knew? Yeah, that blew me away when I first learned about that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But obviously, they've done well, and they have a lot of Ethereum locked up, essentially. But the problem, the thing is, essentially what they're doing is they're hoping that their Ethereum, which is locked up in collateral, is going to appreciate in price, right? So if I lock up, one BitShare, let's say, and I can create, 10 cents of BitUSD, I'm hoping that my one BitShare is going to be, worth more in the long run, right? Because if it's worth less, it means that I won't be backing my 10 cents of BitUSD anymore, right? Maybe it's worth less than that, right? If the price of BitShares goes down. So essentially, when I'm locking up collateral, I am taking a bet. I'm taking a long or a short position on it. So one of the cool things is we can see here, we can actually look at this in one of the Bitspark accounts actually. So if you just check out Bitspark trading, and anybody can see this on the DEX, we have this concept, but for some of the more traditional fiat currencies. So Bitspark trading is one account which we use to manage our stable.PHP currency pair. And if you look at the account here, you can see that we've actually locked up some money here, and that's providing some actual liquidity for stable PHP. So we can see here the debt of 800,000 stable PHP. So if we actually go and look at the markets here, we can check out, here we go, BitUSD, stable PHP, go to the market. And if we scroll down, we can see here there is an order book, and I'll just convert it to something familiar. So this is the price that a lot of people look at when they look at the US dollar to Philippines peso price, right? They usually have a number. It's at the moment, it's in the early 50s. But here you can see the market prices. Now, in our case, to create stable PHP, you have to lock up BitUSD, right? So essentially, you're not being exposed to some sort of crypto which can like massively fluctuate, up and down in the markets. It's USD, right? So the USD PHP price doesn't really move that much. And what we can do is we can actually look at, say, xe.com, XEUSD PHP, convert. Let's have a look at that. Convert US dollars to PHP. And we can compare some of the exchange rates on the DEX versus this. So here we go, we're loading up. Current market price, 52.22. And we can see if we go to a chart over time. Let's look at say the 10-year chart, something like that, right? So we can see that, look, over time, the Philippines peso as a currency, I mean, you need more Philippines peso for one USD, right? Like, down here, it got to almost 40 pesos to the dollar, and then it went up to about 54 pesos to the dollar. And this is just a trend which goes for so many currencies around the world, right? So basically, the dollar is worth more in these different currencies. So in the case of SparkDEX, if you're locking up, some collateral at, let's say, 52 here is the current lockup price, you're taking a bet that in future you think that the PHP might be worth 60 or something like that, right? It's going to be worth less. So that's good because you can make money on that essentially, because your collateral is then worth more. So your US dollars will be worth more. So if you lock them up, you are guaranteed that you will have the ability to mint more PHP in future, or buy back the PHP which you already minted at a lower price. So that essentially you can take a short position in the Philippines peso currency. So if you think the Philippines peso is a currency which is just going to depreciate against the dollar, which in my opinion, I think is a pretty solid bet, because, as we can see over time, it's literally done that since forever. A friend of mine says that he grew up in the Philippines, decades ago, but when he was a kid, it used to be 7 pesos to the dollar. Now it's 52. So, there is the case to be said that these currencies are going to depreciate. So if you want to short them, then the DEX is a great way to do that. And you can do that right here with the borrow button. You can click borrow. It's how much debt do you want to lock up? So maybe you want to lock up, 10 BitUSD. You'll need a collateral ratio of some amount to do that. Let's say, this much. And you can, lock up some margin there to create some BitUSD or some stable PHP if you want to do that. So yeah, I think that covers a little bit about shorting. But the main point here is that you can take bets on currencies which are either going to go up or down in your estimation. And if you think that, say, this currency is going to go down, then the best way to do that is to perhaps, lock up some BitUSD, create that currency like a stable PHP, and then go and sell it to the market. And that's how you would do that. And you could do the same principle, say, on BitShares as well. Is if you think BitShares is going to go down, then maybe you lock up some BTS right now, you create some BitUSD, and then you use that BitUSD to buy some more BitShares. And in that case, then now you have a lot more BitShares, and you'd be more exposed to the price that way. So really depends, how you want to think about it.
So you basically were talking about locking up, borrowing against your BitUSD and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm looking at this right. If I'm not mistaken, that's kind of like leverage, right? Like you're basically borrowing. It's kind of like, these people are crazy, but you can trade, 100x leverage on Bitcoin, right? So your $100 is like, way more, right? Like 100 times that, right? Is there a difference between sort of margin side of things like leverage versus shorting? Like, for example, couldn't I just buy the whatever position I want to get in just on the spot market? So for example, like you said, if I think BitShares is going down, I buy BitUSD because the dollar will hold its, let's say BitShares is crashing, it's at 3.5 cents, let's say it's going to crash to 2. I would buy BitUSD, hold BitUSD, and then essentially buy back my BitShares. Because basically I was just trying to draw the construct that you could do the same shorting and longing, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, shorting and longing on spot markets, but what you were showing was also leverage on top of the just position of shorting and longing. Is that accurate, or do you actually need to do the borrowing to be considered a short or a long?
What you say is correct in that if you buy at spot or sell at spot, you're taking a position, you're taking a long or a short. And certainly if you think the BitShares price is going to go down, then you should convert your BitShares into BitUSD, hold it in BitUSD until such stage as you think it's going to go back up, and then you can buy back in at the lower price. So that's much better than sort of holding on and now having some BTS which is worth less. So essentially, yeah, you can do that on spot. You don't need leverage in order to take a short or a long position. It's just that many people, if they want to short something, they borrow more money and they lock up some collateral to do that. So yeah, you can do it either way. In the case of an EMA, this is just another trading strategy. So we've gone over some of the arbitrage, we've gone over some of the leverage. But what an EMA is, it's an exponential moving average. And essentially what that means is it is a summary of the last number of periods on a chart. So if you have a look at we've got a chart here, the BTS BitUSD again. Each of these little candles is a period. And in this case, it's set to 4 hours in that case. So we can see here the different price movements within those periods. Now, what an EMA does, and we have a number of different charting opportunities here. So if we just go to indicators up here, we type in EMA, and we can see that there's different types, but let's just concern ourselves with the EMA cross. The EMA cross is and you can see here there's a couple of different lines here, and you can also see that on my chart here I have some other options. So I have EMA cross 9 and 26. So what that indicator means is that one of the lines is a summary of the last 9 periods, so the average price of the last 9 periods. So if we take, say, this candle right here, this EMA for the green line is the average of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It is the average price of all of those different periods. And the same is true for the 26. It goes all the way back. So essentially what the plan here with an EMA is that you should be buying when they cross and selling when they cross. It's as simple as that. I think I read somewhere that this strategy works always 75% of the time or something like that. At the 25% you got to be aware of, but anyway, over time, you can always come out ahead as long as it's an active market, but you need the capital to back you. But one of the cool things here is that you can actually see it in practice, right? So, let's look up here at the chart. You can see here the two lines have diverged, right? And they diverged a little bit up here at the end there. So if you had have sold, at a price of, about 4 cents, something like that. You would have done that when the lines crossed, way up here at the start of the chart. You would have held into your BitUSD, and then you would have bought here, right? And this price here is 397, yeah? And the next time they cross is up here, which if I just move this, we can see here the price up here is 406, right? So see here, we're buying at 397, 398, and we're selling at, say, 406, 407, something like that. And that means that, okay, now we're back in BitUSD, the price drops again, we buy in, we buy, sell, and so on. And you can see here, the lines diverge quite a bit again. So you can see that we should be out of BTS at this stage because the lines last crossed at about this period here. And the lines diverge, and they haven't actually met up yet. So when they meet up again, that is a good time to buy back in. So I think if you just follow this strategy, and you can see it playing out on sort of a larger chart as well. If we zoom out a little bit, we can see again, you've got some periods here where it's good to be in USD, and then here you can see it's good to buy. So, and you can actually see a lot of these different points on the chart have already been highlighted for us, the different buy and sell points for the EMAs. So, buying here at 4.3 cents and then selling here at 4.44, that's a good trade, right? And then you buy, sell, and so on. So being able to do that is very interesting, and it's not distinct to the DEX. It's actually something which happens on a lot of other markets. So if we switch back here to Binance, you can see actually EMAs are default on the Binance charting here, which they have. So they have a number of different EMAs which people can look at and they can tweak. But so this is a universal concept, and you can apply it to any market. So in our case, we're looking at the BTS BitUSD market, but we could equally be looking at one of the other markets as well. So I think EMAs, it's a fairly easy concept. When the lines cross, buy or sell, and you just got to be able to keep on it like that. So sort of one of the things to do is, because charting, these markets are 24/7. If you miss one of these trading opportunities, I mean, you could mess it up, right? So you've got to be able to be available to be buying and selling. In the traditional world, as we spoke last time, markets are only open. The NASDAQ is only open New York stock, hours, right? So everybody goes there Monday to Friday, and that's when the market's open, and they sit at their trading terminals and they use these EMAs and other strategies, and they trade at them during the day, and then they go home at night and they're quite happy because the position's not going to move. That's not the case in crypto. So crypto is 24/7. So again, this is another good use case for, say, having a bot which can track this for you, and then be able to execute on this 24/7. When I first got started in Bitcoin back in 2011, I think it was 2012, I bought an EMA bot, and it was like a Google Chrome extension for MTGOX. And you just gave the details of your API keys into this Google Chrome extension of MTGOX, and then I just had it there running on my laptop, and it would just be in one of the tabs, and it would just be sitting there trading. And obviously that was good while I was sitting there, with my laptop open and plugged in. But as soon as I had to go home or whatever, then I'd close the laptop lid, the extension wouldn't be working anymore, there would be no internet, and I might miss out on some trades. But overall, the extension, I think was a great example of being able to use these EMAs, and you can do exactly the same thing here on the DEX for any currency.
That's so cool. I mean, as much as I want to keep digging into these concepts, I think that is really quite perfect for us to just chew on. And anyone that's listening, let's make the moving averages your sort of homework, if you will. And we hadn't in any other videos mentioned homework. We're sneaking this one up on you because I think, I'm convinced it's simple little moves that you make again and again. You're almost going to be bored with how tedious it probably is. I mean, you all at, BitSpark, you've really embraced that tediousness is really an amazing business, like financial services. Imagine being Coinbase. Yeah, you're buying, you're selling, you're facilitating the same damn thing every time. It's literally nothing new has been invented. So I think this is a great way for us. It's like, it's like a great way to just start looking at moving averages and just like make some moves there. And, there's other stuff we can add on to this. But I think, I don't want to overload people like we had discussed, before we did this. We wanted people to really just like run with that. So run with moving averages. We'll maybe break down some other concepts that are just common around, like Forex and trading. So yeah, thanks for sharing all that. Was there any other points that had come to your mind about just any take homes or takeaways from what we've discussed?
No, I mean, I think the opportunities are always there. People often, think, oh, where are the opportunities on the DEX? Or, oh, trading volume is X, therefore there's no opportunities. Actually, opportunities are everywhere all the time. So, if the Bitcoin price goes up or down, then the Bitcoin price goes up or down relative to everything else as well. So then the Bitcoin BitShares price will then have to react. The Bitcoin to SparkDex HKD price will have to react. Everything will have to react. But of course, they don't react at the same time. So when we spoke about arbitrage before, we literally went onto the SparkDex, HKD to BTC markets, and we saw that there was $200 difference. So you can literally make $200 if you go and trade on that market right now. So I think some of these concepts are pretty cool, and they happen all the time. They might be small, but you know what? They add up, because there was some discussion as well previously where people are going, oh, they're only small little trades, $10, $15 here and there. But it's like, yeah, okay, let's say you do, 100 of those $15 trades. At the end of the day, you're going to make some decent money. So a lot of people actually just do this for a living, and that's how they earn their salary. So yeah, I think just being aware that there are always these opportunities. Arbitrage is a good way to start. Just look at the price in one location, look at the price in another location, buy low, sell high. And the EMAs, I think, is a really good one as well. It's a pretty simple concept, right? It's like, look, when these lines cross, buy, when they cross, sell, and just be able to follow that and be able to see what is happening there. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps up a lot of the things I wanted to say, but yeah.
George, thanks again. Really insightful. And do your homework, everyone. Moving averages, arbitrage, just study charts. Take a look, poke around. I mean, I've started to learn to get really like comfortable with the data. Pretend the data is your friend. Pretend it's like you're going to go have a beer together and you're going to figure things out. And it sounds kind of like I'm being silly. I'm really kind of not, because we're so scared of the data. Don't be scared. Dig in, lean in, and you might surprise yourself at being able to find opportunities. And we're gonna be here to continue to build some content around more beginner, intermediate, advanced stuff, and it should be fun. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Aaron.